Hi everyone, this lesson shows you how to use long division to convert fractions to decimals. In the example given, we have 5/12 that needs to be turned into a decimal. Let's first go over some vocabularies from 5/12 before we begin. The 5 is the numerator, the 12 is the denominator. When you convert 5/12 to a division question, which is 5 dividing by 12, 5 is actually called the dividend, and 12 is called the divisor. If you notice, I have given you grid paper in this question and we will take advantage of that. You'll write the division symbol on the corner of the box and fill in the number accordingly. The 5 in this case is the dividend, and that will be the number that always goes inside the box. 12 is the divisor, and that goes outside. Notice how 12 cannot go into 5 right here, so you have to now add a 0 to the 5 with a decimal point in between the 5 and the 0, which turn this into 5.0 or 5 and 0/10. Since you add a decimal point to the question, you will also need to add a decimal point on the top for your answer. Before we begin, let's create a help table for the 12. So 12 times 1 will give you 12, times 2 will give you 24, times 3 will give you 36, and continue until you get to 9. You stop at 9 for this table because whenever you solve questions using long division, you're solving it one digit at a time. Just want to make sure that you know this table is really helpful, but it's not necessary. You do it if you're not comfortable with the times table or long division. So now let's see how that helps. 12 goes into 50 how many times? As you look through the list, you should notice that it goes in 4 times at most, because after 4 times it goes into 60s, which is not enough. So you put the 4 on the top, which is where your answer goes, and minus 50 by 48, which brings you 2. And given that 12 cannot go into 2, you add another 0 here to turn your number into 20. You should know that 12 goes into 20 only once, so you put a 1 on the answer area, and minus 20 by 12, which brings you 8. And again, continuing your process, you add another 0 here, and that brings it down to 80 for you. Looking down your help list, you should know that 12 goes into 80 only 6 times. So you put a 6 on the answer area, and you minus 80 by 72, which brings you an 8 again. And if you add a 0 here, you should notice that you got 80 again. And that's a good news, because that means your answer is going to repeat, which will become a 6 again. So on our answer, we can just put a line on top of the 6, because your next answer will be 6 anyways, and the process will repeat. So 5/12 in decimal is 0.416 with the repeating sign on top of the 6 only. Now let's do one more example so you know how to work this out. 19/15 when turned into a division question is 19 dividing by 15, which in long division symbol, the dividend is the number that goes inside, so you put the 19 inside and the 15 outside. And again, before we begin, we will make a help table for the divisor, which is the 15. It's really helpful to have it, but again, it's not necessary. So if you find yourself to be really good at it, you don't really need it. Once again, you stop at 9 because whenever you solve questions using long division, you're solving the question one digit at a time. Coming back to the question, 15 only goes into 19 once, so you're going to subtract that by 15, and the 1 goes on to the answer area, which brings you 4. Notice how 15 cannot go into 4, so you have to add a 0 to the dividend with a decimal point, and you can bring this 0 down and make your number look like 40. Don't forget to put the decimal point on your answer area as well. Now 15 can go into 40 twice according to our help table, so you put the 2 on the answer area and minus that by 30, which brings us 10. And since 15 cannot go into 10, we have to add the 0 to the dividend again and bring that down to make our number look like 100. 15 goes into 100 only 6 times per our help table, so we have the 6 on the numerator, and you will subtract 90 from 100, which brings you 10 again, and you add a 0 again to the dividend, which brings us 100 again. And good news, we have a repeating question again. So our repeating number will be the last one as well, which is the 6. So you put the repeating line on top of the 6, and that brings us 1915 equals to 1.26 repeated. Okay, to wrap up this lesson, some advices for doing long division is 1. To do it on grid papers, because the boxes helps you to stay organized. The second tip is that you should always create a help chart using your divisor, so you don't need to trial and error out your numbers. And that's it for the lesson.